Welcome back. Now, a lot has been happening across the entire world, but let's bring you some updates on what's been happening across the continents of Africa. A world mobility solution provider, Bombardier Transportation, has confirmed a deal with the Egyptian government to build 2 new monorails. At the 2020 UK Africa Investment Summit, Bombardier's consortium was named the preferred bidder for the project after securing a £1.7 billion backing from the UK Export Finance. This is the biggest amount of financing that the Export Credit Agency has ever provided for an overseas infrastructure project. The monorails are part of Egypt's plan to build a sustainable transportation infrastructure that can cope with its growing population whilst reducing the impact of climate change. COVID-19 has spread to nearly 220 countries and territories, with more than 94.1 million cases, and has claimed over 2 million lives globally. In Africa, over 3.3 million cases have been reported in all countries, with nearly 81,000 deaths. Dr. John Nkenkazong, Director of the Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, gave an update on the COVID situation and Africa's CDC response activities across the continent.
On the continent of Africa, 3.3 million cases have been recorded, which accounts for 3.5% of the total cases reported globally. Of that number, 2.7 million have recovered, which represents 83% overall of the recovery. Unfortunately, we have recorded 81,000 deaths across the continent with a case fatality rate of 2.5% and accounting for 4% of deaths reported globally. On this note, I would like to comment on the numbers you just heard. Previously, when the global case fatality rate used to be 2.4%, the continental case fatality rate was around 2.2%. But now you realize that the numbers have reversed. And whereas the global case fatality rate is now 2.2%, the continental case fatality rate is 2.5%. So definitely we are seeing a higher number of deaths occurring on the continent. 5 countries are accounting for about 70% of all cases reported in Africa, including South Africa with 41%, that is 1.3 million cases. Morocco, 14%, representing 460,000 cases. Tunisia, 6%, representing 188,000 cases. Egypt, 5%, 158,000 cases, and Ethiopia, 4%, with 130,000 cases. The highest proportion of new cases reported for the week was from Southern Africa, 66%, followed by North Africa, 19%, West Africa, 9%, East Africa, 4%, and Central Africa, 2%. 5 countries are reporting the highest number of new cases, including South Africa with 100,000 new cases, Tunisia 19,000, Nigeria 11,000, Zambia 9,000, and Morocco 7,000. In terms of testing, as a continent, we are now tested close to 30 million tests. To be very specific, 29.3 million tests. And we continue to now adjust our community of practice, support, and training to accommodate training on vaccines, on access to vaccines and distribution on the continent. So such trainings have already started. Some good news here. We just this week received supplies, that is response supplies to COVID, excuse me, through UNICEF, worth $24 million that we have procured. And the supplies include 4 million masks, 2 million surgical gowns, 200,000 face shields, 2.5 million gloves, 700 oxygen concentrators, oxygen delivery equipment, 1 million COVID tests, and other clinical lab supplies. And these are all materials that we will be distributing to member states to support them to fight the second wave.
Now, according to the 2021 edition of Africa's Development Dynamics Report, the COVID-19 pandemic is the hardest shock to Africa economies in 25 years. GDP decreased in 41 countries in 2020, compared to 11 countries in 2009 global financial crisis. The report indicates that public revenues should have contracted even further, about 10%, in at least 22 countries between 2019 and 2020. Total national savings could drop by 18%, remittances by 25%, and foreign direct investment by 40%. However, Africa's booming digital sector will offer an opportunity for governments to help kickstart a new growth cycle in the aftermath of the COVID-19 crisis. This can be achieved by encouraging the spreading of digital technologies, data and interconnection to all sectors. Starting with healthcare, African countries can accelerate economic transformation and the creation of productive jobs in line with the aspiration of the African Union Agenda 2063. Now, many of us have been wondering how the diaspora can help in the development of the continent. Well, Article 3 of the Protocol on Amendments of the Constitutive Acts of the African Union recognizes the important role the African diaspora has to play. The Citizens and Diaspora Organizations Directorate, through the Diaspora Division, is building a global African family by ensuring the participation of the African diaspora in the integration and development agenda of the continent. Now let's take a look at another aspiration video of the 2063 agenda.
The Constitutive Act of the African Union recognizes the important role the African diaspora has to play in the development of the continent and states that the Union will invite and encourage the full participation of the African diaspora as an important part of our continent in the building of the African Union. The African Union, in its definition of the diaspora, applies the following criteria: bloodline and/or heritage, people living outside the continent whose ancestral roots or heritage are in Africa; migration, people of African heritage who migrated from or are living outside the continent. In this context, 3 trends of migration were identified: pre-slave trade, and post-slave trade or modern migration. The principle of inclusiveness. The definition must embrace both ancient and modern diaspora. The commitment to the African cause. People who are willing to be part of the continent or the African family.
The best way to engage the diaspora is to engage them into Pan-African networks. So what we do is we go to these networks, to these regions outside, and we have 3 regions. Americas and the Caribbean is 1 region, Europe as a 2nd region, and then east of the continent, Middle East, Asia, and Oceania as the 3rd region. What we try to do, we try to see where the diasporas are in large numbers. That's the first thing. And then we try to see whether there are organizations, and there are usually organizations, professional organizations, organizations around nationality, organizations around faith, and we try to bring them together into something bigger, into a Pan-African network. And that is something that is not easy. It's hard to let go of your organization and belong to something bigger. But isn't this what the African Union is about? What we did is it's a union of member states. In the different regions, it's a union of these countries, East region, West, Central, North, and South. So we tell them that it is hard, but it gives you a lot of power. Some of those are doing this better than others. In Europe, because maybe it's historic, it's been there for a long time, the diasporas are well organized over there, and they have elections between them, and they have networks that we recognize.
Public participation is a fundamental requirement if Africa is to achieve Aspiration 1 of Agenda 2063, for a prosperous Africa based on inclusive growth and sustainable development. Civil society organizations play a key role in ensuring public awareness and involvement in national and Africa's development agenda. One of the flagship projects of Agenda 2063 that aims to promote this aspiration by providing an authoritative resource on the authentic history of Africa and African life. The encyclopedia will provide Africans a body of truth to guide and unite them in their development with foundations in all aspects of the African life, including history, legal, economic, religion, architectural, and educational, as well as the systems and practices of African societies. The Encyclopedia Africana will act as an ultimate guide, providing an African worldview of the people, culture, literature, and history of Africa, and is a key tool to be used to educate, inform, and set the records straight regarding the history, culture, and contributions of African people throughout the world.
Sadly, that brings us to the end of the show. If you have any questions about the AfCFTA or the show, head over to Voxafrica social media platforms and leave your messages on there, and we will respond to your messages accordingly. We're done for another day. Make sure you look after yourself and each other. All being well, we'll see you next week. It's goodbye from us.